Williams had always prided himself on being a fair employer. At 38, he owned a successful consulting firm in downtown Chicago and lived in a beautiful suburban home with his two young children, Emma and Jake. His wife Sarah had passed away in a car accident 2 years earlier, leaving him to navigate single parenthood while maintaining his demanding career. The decision to hire live-in help hadn't been easy, was fiercely protective of his children and particular about who he allowed into their lives. After months of interviews and background checks, he had finally settled on Maria, a soft-spoken woman in her early 30s from Guatemala. Maria came with excellent references from 3 previous families, spoke fluent English, and most importantly, had immediately connected with Emma, age 7, and Jake, age 5. For the past 8 months, Maria had been nothing short of a blessing. She arrived every Monday morning and stayed through Friday evening, maintaining the household with quiet efficiency while worked long hours. The children adored her gentle manner and the way she helped them with homework, prepared nutritious meals, and created fun activities that kept them engaged and happy. Had grown comfortable with the arrangement. Maria was professional, reliable, and seemed to genuinely care for his children. She respected boundaries, kept the house immaculate, and never overstepped her role. The children were thriving under her care and finally felt like he could focus on his work without constant worry about their. This particular Thursday had been especially hectic. Had spent the entire day in back-to-back client meetings, dealing with a particularly demanding project that required his full attention. He'd sent Maria a text around 3 o'clock letting her know he'd be home later than usual and asking her to give the children dinner at their regular time. She'd responded promptly, as always, assuring him that everything was under control. The Chicago traffic was particularly brutal that evening, and what should have been a 40-minute commute stretched to nearly an hour and a half. Felt the familiar knot of guilt in his stomach as he thought about missing another evening with Emma and Jake. He made a mental note to clear his Saturday schedule so they could spend quality time together at the park or perhaps visit the science museum Jake had been asking about. As he finally pulled into his driveway at 8:15, noticed the warm glow of lights throughout the house. Through the kitchen window, he could see Maria moving about, probably cleaning up after dinner. The sight brought him a sense of relief and gratitude. Despite his exhaustion, knowing his children were safe and well cared for made the long day worthwhile. Entered through the front door, setting down his briefcase and loosening his tie. The house smelled of Maria's homemade enchiladas, which the children loved, and he could hear the faint sound of the television from the living room. Everything seemed perfectly normal, exactly as it should be on any typical weekday evening. "I'm home," he called out, expecting to hear the usual chorus of "Daddy" from his children. Instead, Maria appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Mr. Williams, welcome home," she said with her usual warm smile. The children finished their homework and had dinner. Emma practiced piano for 30 minutes and Jake completed his reading assignment. They're watching their program now before bath time. Nodded appreciatively. "Thank you, Maria. You always take such good care of them. How was their day?" "Very good," Maria replied. Emma got an A on her math test, and Jake's teacher sent a note saying he's improving with his writing. They're both excited to tell you about their day. The familiar routine of checking in with Maria about the children's activities was comforting. Valued these brief conversations that kept him connected to his children's daily lives despite his work demands. He made his way to the living room where Emma and Jake were cuddled together on the couch, watching their favorite nature documentary. "Daddy," Emma exclaimed, jumping up to give him a hug. "Guess what? I got the highest grade in my math class today." Jake scrambled to join them. "And I wrote a whole story about dinosaurs. Maria said it was really good." Knelt down to embrace both children, feeling the day's stress melt away. These moments reminded him why he worked so hard and why finding the right person to care for his children had been so crucial. "I'm so proud of both of you," he said, ruffling Jake's hair. "Tell me all about your stories and your test." For the next 20 minutes, listened as his children enthusiastically shared their day's adventures. Emma explained her math problems with the precision of a tiny teacher, while Jake acted out scenes from his dinosaur story with dramatic flair. Maria had quietly returned to the kitchen, giving the family their private time together while finishing the evening cleanup. As 8:30 approached, knew it was time for the children's bath routine. Sarah had always insisted on consistent bedtime schedules and had maintained this tradition, believing that structure and routine helped provide the stability his children needed after losing their mother. "All right, you two," said, standing up and stretching. "Bath time, let's get you ready for bed." "Can we have extra story time tonight?" Emma asked hopefully. "We'll see how quickly you get ready," replied with a smile. "If you're both washed and in pajamas in 15 minutes, we might have time for an extra chapter." The children raced toward the stairs, excited by the prospect of extended story time, followed at a more leisurely pace, already thinking about which book they might read together. Jake had been particularly interested in a series about young explorers, while Emma preferred stories about brave princesses and clever animals. As they reached the top of the stairs, could hear water running in the main bathroom. "Looks like Maria's already started your bath," he told the children. "Remember to brush your teeth after you wash up." Emma and Jake hurried toward the bathroom, their voices echoing in the hallway as they debated which toys to bring into the tub. Smiled at their enthusiasm, grateful once again for the normalcy and joy that filled his home despite the challenges of single parenthood. He was heading toward his own bedroom to change out of his work clothes when he heard an unusual sound from the bathroom. It wasn't the typical splashing and giggling he expected from his children's bath time. Instead, there was a different quality to the voices, a tone he couldn't quite identify. Curious and slightly concerned, moved closer to the bathroom door, which was slightly ajar. What he saw through the gap stopped him completely in his tracks. Maria was in the bathtub with his children. The scene before him was so unexpected that for several seconds couldn't process what he was seeing. Maria sat in the warm water with Emma on one side and Jake on the other. She was gently washing Jake's hair while Emma played with bath toys nearby. All three of them were laughing softly at something Jake had said. His mind raced as he tried to understand what was happening. Maria was fully clothed in what appeared to be an old t-shirt and shorts, clearly not her usual work attire. Her long dark hair was wet and pulled back, and she seemed completely comfortable and natural in the situation. The children appeared relaxed and happy, showing no signs of distress or confusion. For a moment felt a surge of shock and confusion. This was certainly not what he had expected to find. His protective instincts as a father immediately activated, and numerous questions flooded his mind. Why was Maria in the bath with his children? Was this appropriate? How should he react to this unexpected situation? But as he continued to observe, trying to process what he was witnessing, began to notice details that gave him pause. Emma was chattering happily about her day at school, completely at ease. Jake was giggling as Maria carefully rinsed soap from his hair, his small face bright with joy. There was nothing in their demeanor that suggested anything inappropriate or uncomfortable was happening. Maria's interactions with the children appeared natural and caring. She was being gentle and attentive, helping them wash properly while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Her clothing, though wet, was modest and practical. She spoke to the children in the same warm, nurturing tone she always used, asking about their favorite parts of the day and encouraging Jake as he attempted to wash his own arms. Realized he was witnessing something he had never seen before, something that made him question his assumptions about caregiving, boundaries, and what it meant to truly care for children. The scene before him challenged his preconceived notions about professional relationships and appropriate behavior. As he stood in the hallway, trying to decide how to respond, heard Maria's voice clearly for the first time since he discovered them. "Remember to wash behind your ears, Jake," she said gently. "And Emma, don't forget to rinse all the soap from your hair. We want you both to be clean and fresh for bedtime stories with your daddy." The normalcy of her words, combined with the obvious comfort and happiness of his children, forced to confront his initial reaction. Perhaps there was more to this situation than met the eye. Perhaps he needed to understand what had led to this moment before jumping to conclusions or making any hasty decisions. Taking a deep breath, stepped back from the door, giving himself time to think. Whatever was happening in that bathroom, his children seemed safe and content. Before he acted on his surprise and confusion, he owed it to everyone involved to understand the full context of what he had witnessed. Quietly moved to his bedroom, his mind spinning with questions and conflicting emotions. He needed to approach this situation carefully and thoughtfully. The relationship he had built with Maria over the past 8 months, the trust his children had in her, and the stability she had brought to their lives all deserved consideration before he made any decisions about how to handle this unexpected discovery. As he sat on the edge of his bed, still hearing the gentle voices and soft laughter from the bathroom, realized that this moment would likely change everything. How he chose to respond would not only affect his relationship with Maria, but could also impact his children's sense of security and trust. The weight of single parenthood had never felt heavier than it did in that moment, as grappled with questions he had never imagined having to face. In a few minutes, he would need to decide how to address what he had seen, and that decision would ripple through all their lives in ways he was only beginning to understand. The sound of water draining from the tub indicated that bath time was nearly over. Soon, Maria would be helping his children into their pajamas, and the evening routine would continue as if this was just another ordinary Thursday night. But for nothing about this evening felt ordinary anymore. He could hear Emma's voice calling out, "Daddy, we're almost ready for story time." Her innocent excitement reminded him of what was most important in all of this, his children's and happiness. Whatever decisions he made next would need to serve their best interests above all else. Heard the bathroom door open and the soft patter of small feet running down the hallway. Emma appeared in his doorway first, wearing her favorite purple pajamas with tiny stars printed all over them. "Daddy, I'm ready for story time," she announced, her damp hair combed neatly and her face glowing from the warm bath. Jake appeared moments later, struggling slightly with the sleeve of his dinosaur shirt. "Maria helped us get really clean," he said proudly. "She even washed my feet." Managed a smile, though his mind was still processing what he had witnessed. "That's wonderful, buddy. Why don't you both go pick out which book you want to read tonight? I'll be there in just a minute." The children hurried off to their shared bedroom, their voices carrying down the hall as they debated between adventure stories and fairy tales. Took a deep breath, knowing he needed to have a conversation with Maria before he could settle in for bedtime stories. He found Maria in the kitchen, wiping down the already spotless counters. She had changed into dry clothes and was quietly finishing the last of the evening cleanup. Her movements were efficient and practiced, the same routine she followed every evening. "Maria," said softly, not wanting the children to overhear, "could we talk for a moment?" She looked up and noticed a slight tension in her expression, as if she had been expecting this conversation. "Of course, Mr. Williams. Is everything all right?" Gestured toward the living room, away from where the children might hear them. Maria followed, her hands clasped in front of her in a way that reminded of a student called to the principal's office. They sat down on opposite ends of the couch, the same couch where just an hour earlier had listened to his children's excited stories about their day. Now the space felt charged with uncertainty and unspoken questions. "Maria, I need to ask you about bath time tonight," began carefully. "I came upstairs and saw that you were in the bathtub with Emma and Jake. I was surprised. Can you help me understand what happened?" Maria's eyes widened slightly, and she looked down at her hands before meeting his gaze again. "Mr. Williams, I can explain. I know it must have looked strange, and I should have asked your permission first." Waited, trying to keep his expression neutral, and encouraging her to continue. "Today was very hot," Maria began, her voice quiet but steady. "When I picked up the children from school, Jake fell on the playground. He scraped his knee and got mud all over his clothes. Emma tried to help him, and she got dirty too. By the time we got home, they were both quite messy." She paused, gathering her thoughts before continuing. "I started their bath as usual, but Jake was crying, not because of his scrape, but because he was embarrassed about falling in front of his friends. Emma was trying to comfort him, but she was also upset because some children had laughed when Jake fell. Felt his heart tighten at the thought of his children being hurt or embarrassed. He nodded for Maria to continue. "When I tried to help them in the bath, Jake became very upset. He said he didn't want anyone to help him because he wasn't a baby, but his knee needed to be cleaned properly and he was having trouble reaching it. Emma was also struggling to wash the mud from her hair by herself." Maria's voice grew softer, more hesitant. "I tried to help from outside the tub, but Jake started to cry harder. He said he missed his mommy, and he wished someone could help him the way she used to. Emma started crying too, saying she couldn't remember how mommy used to wash her hair." The mention of Sarah hit like a physical blow. He remembered how his wife used to make bath time special for the children, turning it into a game with songs and stories. After she died, bath time had become just another task to be completed, efficient but lacking the warmth and comfort Sarah had brought to the routine. "I know I should have called you," Maria continued. but you were in important meetings and the children were so upset. I remembered how my mother used to bathe all of us children together when we were small. It was normal in our family, a time of comfort and care. I thought maybe if I got in with them, wearing clothes of course, I could help them feel safe and cared for the way they needed. Realized he had been holding his breath. What happened then? At first they were surprised, Maria admitted. But then Jake stopped crying. He let me help clean his knee properly, and I was able to show Emma how to rinse her hair completely. We talked about their day, about the playground incident, and about how sometimes everyone needs help with things that are difficult. She looked directly at Now, her dark eyes earnest and worried. They started to smile again. Jake even laughed when I accidentally got soap in my own hair. Emma told me she felt better, that it reminded her of being little and safe. I know it wasn't proper according to normal rules, but in that moment it felt like what they needed. Sat quietly, processing everything Maria had told him. The image that had initially shocked him now took on an entirely different meaning. This wasn't a boundary violation or inappropriate behavior. This was a caregiver responding to his children's emotional needs with creativity, compassion, and genuine care. "Maria," he said finally, "why didn't you tell me about Jake's fall when I got home?" She looked uncomfortable. "The children asked me not to worry you. They said you work very hard and they didn't want to add to your stress. Jake especially didn't want you to think he was clumsy or couldn't take care of himself at school." Felt a complex mix of emotions. Pride in his children's consideration for his feelings, guilt about the pressure they apparently felt to protect him from their problems, and deep gratitude for Maria's understanding and care. "I need you to know," said carefully, "that you never need to handle situations like this alone. I want to know when the children are hurt or upset, even if I'm at work. They're the most important thing in my life, and I never want them to feel they can't come to me with their problems." Maria nodded quickly. "I understand, Mr. Williams. I should have called you right away. But I also need you to know," continued, "that what you did tonight, the way you cared for them, the comfort you provided when they needed it most, that was exactly what they needed. I can see that now." Relief flooded Maria's face. "I was so worried you would think it was inappropriate or unprofessional. I know it's not how most families would handle such a situation." Leaned forward slightly. "Maria, can I ask you something personal? You mentioned this was normal in your family. Can you tell me more about that?" Maria's expression softened. "I come from a large family, Mr. Williams, 7 children. My mother worked very hard to care for all of us, and bath time was one of the few times we could all be together, sharing the day's experiences. She would often get in the tub with the younger ones when they were scared or hurt. It wasn't about anything except comfort and care." She paused, then added, "When I left Guatemala, I left behind many children who depended on me. Nieces and nephews, children in our neighborhood whose parents worked long hours. Caring for children, really caring for them, means sometimes doing things that might seem unusual but provide the emotional support they need." Felt a deep sense of understanding wash over him. "You've been taking care of children your whole life, haven't you?" "Yes," Maria replied simply. "It's not just my job with your family, it's who I am. When I see a child in distress, I respond as if they were my own. I hope that doesn't make you uncomfortable." Far from making him uncomfortable, Maria's words filled with a profound sense of gratitude and recognition. This woman hadn't just been doing a job for the past 8 months. She had been loving his children, caring for them with the same instinct and dedication she would show her own family. "Maria, I need to share something with you," said, his voice thick with emotion. "Since Sarah died, I've been so focused on providing for Emma and Jake, on being a good father and maintaining stability, that I sometimes forget they need more than just routine and security. They need the kind of nurturing and emotional care that you provided tonight." He ran a hand through his hair, struggling to find the right words. "When I saw you in that bathtub with my children, my first instinct was to be shocked, to question whether it was appropriate. But now I realize that what I witnessed was love in action. You saw my children's emotional need and responded with your whole heart." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Williams, your children are wonderful. They have brought so much joy to my life. Emma reminds me of my youngest sister, always trying to take care of everyone around her. And Jake has such a tender heart, just like my nephew back home. When they hurt, I hurt too." Felt his own eyes growing moist. "I can see that. The way they talk about you, the way they light up when you're around, the security they feel, I should have recognized sooner that you don't just work here. You're part of our family." The weight of this realization settled over both of them. What had started as an employment arrangement had evolved into something much deeper and more meaningful. Maria hadn't just been caring for his children. She had been providing them with the kind of unconditional love and emotional support that every child needs to thrive. "I want you to know," continued, "that I trust your judgment completely. If you feel my children need something, even if it seems unconventional, I want you to provide it. Their emotional is just as important as their physical safety, and you understand that in ways I'm still learning." Maria wiped away a tear. "Thank you for understanding, Mr. Williams. I was so afraid you would think I had overstepped my boundaries." "The only boundary that matters is what's best for Emma and Jake," replied. "And what you did tonight was absolutely what was best for them. I only wish I could have been there to comfort them when they were upset." "You are a wonderful father," Maria said firmly. "Your children talk about you constantly. They understand how hard you work for them, and they love you deeply. But sometimes children need different kinds of comfort than a parent can provide, especially when they're missing their mother." This observation struck deeply. He had been trying so hard to be both father and mother to his children that he hadn't considered the value of having other caring adults in their lives who could provide different types of support and comfort. "Can I ask you something else?" said. "Do you have children of your own?" Maria's expression grew wistful. "I had hoped to someday, but life took different paths. My husband and I were never blessed with children before he died 5 years ago. Coming to America, working with families like yours, it has given me the chance to love children and be part of their lives in ways I never expected." Felt a profound sense of connection and understanding. Both he and Maria had experienced loss and had found healing and purpose in caring for his children. They were both people who had been shaped by grief, but had chosen to respond with love and dedication to the small lives entrusted to their care. From down the hallway, they could hear Emma calling, "Daddy, are you coming? We picked out 3 books." Smiled, feeling lighter than he had in months. "I should go read to them. But Maria, I want you to know that this conversation has meant everything to me. You're not just an employee here. You're family, and I want you to feel free to love and care for Emma and Jake in whatever way feels right to you." Maria's face broke into a radiant smile. "Thank you, Mr. Williams. Your trust means the world to me." As stood to join his children for story time, he felt a deep sense of peace and gratitude. The shock he had experienced earlier had been transformed into appreciation for the depth of care his children received every day. Maria's love for Emma and Jake wasn't just professional dedication. It was genuine, familial affection that enriched their lives immeasurably. Walking down the hallway toward his children's excited voices, realized that his family had grown in ways he hadn't fully recognized until tonight. The woman caring for his children wasn't just helping him manage his responsibilities. She was providing his children with the kind of nurturing love that would help them heal from their early loss and grow into confident, secure individuals. 3 weeks had passed since the evening that changed everything in the Williams household. Found himself viewing his relationship with Maria through completely different eyes. What he had initially seen as a professional arrangement had revealed itself to be something far more precious. A woman who loved his children as if they were her own. The changes in the household were subtle but profound. Noticed that Emma seemed more confident at school, no longer anxious about separation from him in the mornings. Jake had started talking more openly about his feelings, sharing when he felt sad about his mother or excited about small victories. The children seemed more emotionally secure, knowing they had multiple sources of love and support. Had also made changes to his own schedule. He began leaving work earlier when possible, wanting to be more present for the daily routines and conversations that shaped his children's lives. He started joining Maria and the children for dinner more frequently, creating opportunities for the 4 of them to share meals and stories together. This particular Friday evening had deliberately cleared his schedule to be home by 6 o'clock. He wanted to surprise the children and perhaps take everyone out for pizza, something they hadn't done in months. As he pulled into the driveway, he could see the warm glow of lights in the kitchen and hear faint laughter coming from inside the house. He entered quietly, hoping to surprise everyone, but what he found in the kitchen made him pause in wonder rather than shock. Maria was teaching Emma and Jake how to make tortillas from scratch. Flour dusted every available surface, and all three of them wore aprons that were thoroughly covered in white handprints. "No, Jake, like this," Emma was saying, demonstrating how to roll the dough. "Maria showed us that you have to be gentle but firm." Maria stood behind Jake, her hands guiding his smaller ones as he worked with the rolling pin. "Perfect, Jake. You're getting it exactly right. Soon you'll be able to teach your daddy how to make tortillas." "Can we really teach Daddy?" Jake asked excitedly. "He always burns the pancakes on Saturday mornings." Laughed as he entered the kitchen, unable to keep quiet any longer. "Hey, my pancakes aren't that bad." Three flour-covered faces turned toward him with bright smiles. "Daddy," both children exclaimed simultaneously, "look what we're making." "We're learning Maria's family recipe," Emma explained proudly. "She's going to teach us how to make the filling tomorrow, and then we can have a real Mexican dinner." Looked at Maria, who was smiling but seemed slightly uncertain about his reaction to the flour explosion that had taken over his usually pristine kitchen. "This looks wonderful," he said genuinely. "Can I help, or am I interrupting a private cooking lesson?" "You can help," Jake announced. "But you have to wear an apron. Maria says cooking is messy work, and that's okay because the best food comes from happy kitchens." Looked around at the cheerful chaos, the children's engaged faces and Maria's gentle smile, and felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the heat from the stove. "A happy kitchen," he repeated. "I like that philosophy." Maria handed him an apron, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "Your children are excellent students. They want to learn everything about cooking. Emma has been taking notes in a little notebook so she can remember all the steps." Sure enough, Emma proudly showed a small notebook filled with her careful 7-year-old handwriting, documenting each step of the tortilla-making process. "I want to be able to cook for you and Jake when I grow up," she explained seriously. Felt his heart swell with love and pride. These were the moments he had been missing during his long work days, the small but meaningful experiences that built lasting memories and strengthened family bonds. For the next hour, joined in the cooking lesson, learning alongside his children and marveling at Maria's patience as she guided them through each step. She had a natural gift for teaching, breaking down complex processes into manageable parts and celebrating each small success. As they worked together, noticed how naturally they functioned as a unit. Maria anticipated the children's needs. Emma helped Jake when he struggled with techniques. Jake made everyone laugh with his running commentary and found himself genuinely enjoying the process of creating something together. When they finally sat down to eat their homemade tortillas filled with beans, cheese, and fresh vegetables, realized this was the most relaxed and content he had felt in years. The conversation flowed easily between English and the few Spanish words Maria was teaching the children. Emma and Jake took turns sharing their favorite parts of the cooking process, and Maria told stories about learning to cook with her own mother and grandmother. "Maria," Emma said thoughtfully as they finished eating, "when you tell us stories about your family in Guatemala, it makes me feel happy and sad at the same time." Maria nodded understanding. "I know that feeling, me. Happy because the memories are beautiful, but sad because we miss the people we love who are far away." "Do you miss them very much?" Jake asked innocently. "Every day," Maria replied honestly. "But being here with you and your father and Emma has given me a new family to love. My heart is big enough for both." Felt a lump form in his throat. The simple honesty of Maria's words and the open way his children responded to her emotional availability reminded him of conversations he used to have with Sarah. There was something about Maria's presence that brought out the best in all of them. After dinner, as they cleaned up together, made a decision that had been forming in his mind for several weeks. "Maria, could we talk privately for a few minutes after the children are in bed?" he asked. "There's something important I'd like to discuss with you." She nodded, though he noticed a flicker of concern cross her face. "Of course, Mr. Williams." The bedtime routine that evening was particularly sweet. Both children insisted that Maria help with story time, wanting to share their favorite books with her. As read aloud, Emma curled up next to Maria on one side while Jake leaned against on the other. The four of them created a cozy circle of warmth and contentment. After the children were finally asleep, and Maria sat in the living room with cups of coffee, the comfortable silence of the evening settling around them. Maria began, "I've been thinking a lot about our family situation, and I have something to propose to you." She looked at him attentively, her hands wrapped around her coffee mug. Over the past few months, and especially since our conversation 3 weeks ago, I've come to realize that you're not just caring for my children. You're enriching their lives in ways I never could have imagined. You're teaching them about compassion, cultural appreciation, emotional intelligence, and unconditional love. Paused, gathering his thoughts. I've also realized that the current arrangement, with you going home on weekends and having your own separate life, might not be serving any of us as well as it could. Maria's eyebrows rose slightly, but she remained quiet, waiting for him to continue. I would like to offer you something different, said. Not just a job, but a real place in our family. I'd like you to move into the guest suite permanently, not as live-in help, but as Emma and Jake's second parent figure. Someone who has equal say in decisions about their education and daily life. The surprise on Maria's face was evident, but continued before she could respond. I know this is unconventional, and I know it would represent a big change for all of us. But I've watched how you love my children, and I've seen how they flourish under your care. I think what I'm proposing would benefit everyone involved. Maria set down her coffee cup, her hands trembling slightly. Mr. Williams, I don't understand exactly what you're suggesting. Leaned forward, his voice earnest and clear. I'm suggesting that we become a family in the truest sense. Not romantic, but familial. Co-parents who share the responsibility and joy of raising Emma and Jake together. You would have complete financial security, your own space and independence, but also the opportunity to be a full-time mother figure to children who desperately need what you offer. Tears began to form in Maria's eyes. You're asking me to be their second mother. I'm asking you to be what you already are, replied gently. The difference would be that it would be official, permanent, and recognized. You wouldn't be an employee who could be let go or who has to worry about job security. You would be family with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Maria was quiet for a long moment, processing what had said. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. When I lost my husband, I thought my chance to have a family was over, she said softly. When I came to America, I hoped to build a good life, but I never imagined I could have the privilege of helping to raise such wonderful children. She wiped away a tear. Emma and Jake have become like my own children in my heart. When Emma gets hurt, I feel it in my chest. When Jake accomplishes something new, I feel as proud as if he were my own son. I love them completely. Nodded, I can see that. It's one of the reasons I know this arrangement would work. You don't love them because it's your job. You love them because that's who you are. But what would people think? Maria asked practically. A single father living with a woman who isn't his wife, raising children together. Had anticipated this concern. People will think whatever they want to think regardless of what we do. What matters is that we know the truth, that we're two people who have found a way to give Emma and Jake the best possible childhood. If anyone has a problem with that, it says more about them than about us. Maria was quiet again, and could see her mind working through all the implications and possibilities. There's something else, added. I've been thinking about formalizing your status legally as well. I'd like you to consider becoming Emma and Jake's legal guardian alongside me. If anything ever happened to me, I would want you to continue raising them. And if you agree to this arrangement, I want you to have that security and authority from the beginning. This revelation brought fresh tears to Maria's eyes. You would trust me with that responsibility. Maria, I already trust you with that responsibility every day, replied. This would just make it official. You've proven over and over that my children's is your highest priority. I can't think of anyone I'd rather have as their second parent. Maria stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet neighborhood street while she processed everything had proposed. When she turned back to face him, her expression was resolute. Mr. Williams, she said, using his first name for the first time. I would be honored to accept your offer, to become Emma and Jake's second parent, to help raise them as if they were my own children, to be part of your family in the way you've described. Felt a profound sense of relief and joy wash over him. Really, you're sure? I have never been more sure of anything in my life, Maria replied with a radiant smile. These children have given my life meaning and purpose beyond anything I could have imagined. To have the opportunity to love them officially, to help guide them into adulthood, to be their family, it's more than I ever dared to hope for. They stood up simultaneously and embraced, both of them crying with happiness and gratitude. In that moment, felt a sense of completeness he hadn't experienced since Sarah's death. Not romantic love, but familial love, shared purpose, and the deep satisfaction of knowing his children would be raised with abundant care and affection. "The children are going to be so excited," said as they separated. "Should we tell them tomorrow?" Together, Maria agreed, as a family. As they said goodnight and headed to their respective bedrooms, felt a profound sense of peace about the future. The unconventional family structure they were creating might raise eyebrows among some people, but it felt absolutely right for their circumstances and needs. Emma and Jake would grow up with two devoted parent figures who approached child-rearing as a collaborative effort rooted in love, respect, and shared values. They would learn about different cultures and languages, experience emotional security and stability, and most importantly, know that they were surrounded by adults who would sacrifice anything for their and happiness. That night, as lay in bed thinking about the conversation that had just changed all their lives, he reflected on how dramatically his perspective had shifted since that Thursday evening 3 weeks earlier. What had initially appeared to be a boundary violation had revealed itself to be an act of pure love, leading to the most important decision he had made since becoming a single father. Sometimes the most meaningful changes in life come from unexpected moments that force us to see familiar situations with new eyes. Had discovered that the woman he employed to care for his children had actually been loving them as family all along. Now, they would have the chance to make that love official and permanent, creating a foundation of security and affection that would serve Emma and Jake throughout their lives. The family that had been torn apart by tragedy was being rebuilt in a new form, stronger and more resilient because of the love and dedication of a woman who had opened her heart completely to children who needed everything she had to give. In choosing to formalize Maria's role as co-parent, was ensuring that his children would never again face the world without abundant love and support surrounding them. The discovery that had initially troubled him had become one of the most meaningful conversations of his life as a single father. Tonight, he would read bedtime stories to his children with a fuller understanding of the love and care that surrounded them every day, and gratitude for the woman who had opened her heart so completely to their family. Stood up, straightened his shoulders, and prepared to face whatever conversations and revelations the next few minutes might bring. The discovery he had just made would require courage, wisdom, and perhaps most importantly, an open mind to understand the full truth of what he had witnessed.